The Silent Word. June 30th, 1944. High above the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, where the sky merged with the sea at 15,000 feet, two Pratt & Whitney radial engines roared through the night, shattering the silence. 4,000 horsepower, the embodiment of American engineering prowess, pierced the darkness. A message came from the ground. Target at 12 o'clock, 8 miles and closing. The crew, like predators, turned to intercept. A Japanese Betty bomber on a night raid was completely unaware it had become prey. What if you were told that the most effective tool in the military's arsenal was once deemed Zoe's Fort Au? What if this Carlos Vivdastakshlau weapon became a true ghost dominating the night, and how could such a thing even be possible? Stay with us and watch until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And, of course, let us know in the comments where you're watching this video from. This was the Northrop P-61 Black Widow, a twin-engine giant with a 66-foot wingspan, a crew of 3, and something no other fighter possessed: radar, or .8, capable of piercing the darkest night. The U.S. Army Air Force's High Command called it redundant, .9, but the enemy couldn't see what they couldn't hear. No engine noise, no searchlights, no warnings, just 4 20mm cannons and 4 50 caliber machine guns materializing from the shadows at point-blank range. By the end of the war, these Towns, .11 Nons aircraft had destroyed 127 enemy planes, their targets never knowing death was approaching. The question isn't why they built such a heavy night fighter. The question is how something everyone called useless became a ghost dominating the darkness, and why its story turned out to be so dramatic. The night of June 30th, 1944, marked more than just another combat mission over the Pacific. It represented the culmination of debates that had raged at the highest levels of the Army Air Forces for nearly 3 years. As Lieutenant Hermann Ernst settled into the pilot's seat of his P-61 Black Widow, call sign Arthur Turning, the weight of institutional skepticism pressed on his shoulders as heavily as Guadalcanal's tropical humidity. This moment was pivotal, for it was then that the fate of an entire concept of night aerial combat was decided. Ernst's radar operator, Lieutenant Edward Kopsil, leaned over the green glowing screen of the SCR-720 radar system. Its cathode ray tube displaying electronic saw .50 that represented real aircraft moving miles away in the darkness. Behind them, Staff Sergeant Raymond Mooney manned the top turret, its 450 caliber Browning machine guns ready to complement the 420mm Hispano cannons mounted in the aircraft's belly. Every move, every decision by this crew was part of a grand experiment designed to prove or disprove the Black Widow's effectiveness. Together, this 3-man crew embodied everything critics believed was wrong with American night fighter doctrine. Quote 17. General Hoyt Vandenberg had declared during a heated Pentagon briefing just weeks earlier. Quote about 18. The British de Havilland Mosquito, wooden, fast and proven in European night combat, was everything the P-61 was not, while the Mosquito weighed 11,000 pounds empty. The Black Widow weighed 23,000 pounds fully loaded. Where the Mosquito could achieve 400 miles per hour in level flight, the P-61 struggled to maintain 365 miles per hour at optimal altitude. This performance difference fueled the controversy. But the P-61's designers had their arguments. Stay with us and watch until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, let us know in the comments where you're watching this video from. But Jack Northrop built his aircraft based on an entirely different philosophy. The twin boom design was not an aesthetic choice, but a functional necessity, born from a deep understanding of night combat requirements. The central nacelle housed the crew and weapon systems, with the two Pratt & Whitney R2800 engines positioned far enough apart to minimize asymmetric thrust issues in the event of an engine failure. The radar antenna filled the entire nose cone, unburdened by propeller interference, ensuring unprecedented clarity of the radar image. This was a deliberate approach intended to justify all doubts. Most importantly, the aircraft's size allowed for a fuel capacity that the Mosquito simply couldn't match. 646 gallons compared to the British fighter's 460 gallons. This gave the Black Widow immense endurance, critically important for long night patrols over vast ocean expanses. Ground-controlled intercept called Ernst on the headset. Quotes 22. The countdown to confrontation had begun. The Japanese had been conducting these night nuisance raids for months, with single bombers creeping through the darkness to drop ordnance on American installations. Previous attempts to intercept them with radar-equipped P-38s and F-6F Hellcats had consistently failed. Enemy pilots knew how to use terrain masking and rapid altitude changes to break radar contact. But this time, they faced an unprecedented adversary capable of seeing through the cover of night. Copsil's voice crackled over the intercom. Contact. Bearing 085, range 12 miles, altitude 18,000 feet, course south-southeast. He's heading into the gap between those two storm cells. The radar operator, like a conductor of an invisible orchestra, directed the hunt. The radar operator's fingers fluttered across the controls, adjusting gain and scan modes to maintain target lock. This was an art that distinguished successful night fighter crews from mere statistics. They read the electronic Quote 27, mentally reconstructing the three-dimensional geometry of the intercept in complete darkness. It was this mastery that transformed the machine into a formidable weapon and the crew into true hunters. Ernst pushed the throttles forward, feeling the two radial engines respond with a surge of power. The superchargers whined, forcing compressed air into the cylinders, each engine delivering over 2,000 horsepower. The aircraft climbed steadily in the thin tropical air, the fuel level in its tanks dropping with precise calculation. Range and endurance. That's what mattered in Pacific night combat, not instantaneous speed that impressed crowds at air shows. And these were the qualities the Black Widow demonstrated in full. Target maintaining course and speed, Copsil reported. Looks like he's lining up for a bomb run. We need to intercept him before he reaches the target zone. The Japanese pilot, flying by Dead Reckoning and Celestial Navigation, had no idea that American radar technology had been tracking him from 100 miles out. The strategic advantage belonged entirely to the hunters, and they were ready to exploit it. At 18,000 feet, Ernst began his intercept approach, reducing throttle to avoid overshooting the target. The P-61's radar signature was minimal for its size, another Northrop design decision that paid off in combat. The twin-boom configuration dispersed radar reflections, making the aircraft appear smaller to enemy detection equipment. Not that the Japanese bomber had intercept radar. Their night navigation relied on optical landmarks and radio beacons, which American intelligence had long compromised. And it was this combination of factors that made the Black Widow truly deadly. Do you know that feeling when you're certain your tool or solution is perfectly suited for a complex task, but those around you only see its flaws? When you stand before an invisible threat, and only your unique, sometimes underestimated ability can save the day? That's precisely the feeling that enveloped the crews whose lives depended on a machine that had to prove its worth in the darkest conditions. Today, we'll dive into the history of one of World War II's most unique aircraft, the P-61-35 Night Fighter. How did this colossal machine, initially met with skepticism, manage to become the silent guardian of the night sky? What tactical puzzles did it solve on opposite ends of the world? And how did its seemingly insurmountable limitations ultimately underscore its true genius? Prepare to discover how an aircraft that critics called Coase Quote 36 and Quote 37 became the only hope in pitch darkness where others were powerless, forcing the world to rethink its perceptions of night combat. We deeply appreciate your attention and sincerely ask you to stay with us until the very end of this fascinating narrative. We'd be especially grateful for your like and subscription, as it helps us create more content like this. And, of course, don't forget to tell us in the comments where you're watching our channel from. We are very interested to know the geography of our viewers. Today, we will reveal how the Quote 40 not only coped with invisible threats, but also rewrote the rules of the night sky. And we will show 3 key moments that forever changed the perception of this fighter. You will see how, despite bias and technical challenges, the P-61 demonstrated its indispensability where other fighters were useless. Once again, we remind you that your attention is invaluable to us. Please, stay with us and watch the video until the end. Liking and subscribing is the best gratitude you can offer us. And of course, please write in the comments from which corner of the world you are watching our video. The tension mounted with each passing second. Quote 43 Kopsel reported, his voice steady despite the critical moment. Quote 44. These were words foreshadowing an inevitable clash in the pitch darkness. It is in such moments that the true essence of a strategy designed for the night sky is revealed. Before the crew, the decisive phase of the night intercept unfolded, that final approach which defined the line between a triumphant destruction of the enemy and regrettable missed opportunity. Lieutenant Ernst, an experienced pilot, had meticulously studied the tactical reports of European night fighter squadrons, carefully analyzing how German aces masterfully used the cover of darkness and the element of surprise to deliver devastating blows against RAF Bomber Command. The principles derived from this experience proved universal and unwavering. Approach the target from below or behind, maintaining continuous radar contact until visual acquisition was possible at the minimum permissible distance just before opening fire. And now, this theoretical approach was about to find its embodiment in reality. Suddenly, at 600 yards, the Japanese Superfreeze Quote 47 bomber materialized directly in Ernst's gun sight, like a ghost snatched from the night's void. Its 2 engines stood out distinctly as dark, ominous silhouettes against the countless stars. The Betty pilot maintained a perfectly straight and level flight, utterly unaware of the deadly threat approaching from the 7 o'clock position. Ernst's finger, as if by instinct, found the trigger. 4 powerful cannons and 4 rapid-fire machine guns were ready to unleash over 3,000 rounds per minute upon the enemy. A concentrated barrage of firepower. This was the moment of truth for which this unique aircraft was created. This critical moment fully vindicated not only Northrop's design philosophy, but also the meticulous training of Ernst's entire crew. The P-61-49 was not intended for dizzying daytime dogfights or high-altitude intercepts of enemy fighters. Its existence was dictated by an entirely different scenario: to detect invisible enemies in the boundless darkness and destroy them before they could carry out their destructive missions. The institutional critics who doubted its necessity and utility had never experienced the weight of combat assignments, where every success meant saving thousands of sleeping Marines from bombs they would never even see. This was its true value, which would soon be confirmed. The Betty's wings instantly erupted in dazzling flames as Ernst's precise burst struck its fuel tanks and key engine components. The Japanese aircraft, crippled, flipped in the air and began its final, inexorable dive into the abyss of the Pacific Ocean, taking with it its crew and ordnance never destined to reach Henderson Field. For Lieutenant Ernst, this victory was not just another kill mark on his aircraft's fuselage. It became undeniable proof that the unnecessary Black Widow, in the opinion of many, was capable of fulfilling its promise and justifying its purpose in moments of the highest stakes. However, despite this triumph, the aircraft still faced entirely new challenges on different ends of the Earth. By early July 1944, the first operational P-61 Black Widow squadrons had already taken up positions on opposite ends of the globe, each preparing for vastly different tactical tasks. In the vast Pacific, the 6th Night Fighter Squadron was based at Henderson Field on Guadalcanal, where their formidable black aircraft were carefully concealed under camouflage nets during the day. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the 422nd Night Fighter Squadron began operations from Scourton Airfield in Yorkshire, preparing for the night battles that would determine the outcome of the air war over occupied Europe. These two theaters of war presented radically different challenges for the Black Widow. The contrast between the two theaters of war became apparent almost immediately. Within the first weeks of operational deployment, missions in the Pacific required long patrols over vast ocean expanses, where the task was to hunt individual Japanese bombers that approached American installations under the cover of darkness. European operations dictated an entirely different tactic: intercepting formations of German transport aircraft, evacuating personnel from advancing Allied ground forces, or pursuing elusive V-1 flying bombs that terrorized London throughout the summer. Lieutenant Ernst's success over Guadalcanal certainly attracted significant attention in night fighter circles, but it also starkly highlighted a fundamental contradiction between the aircraft's real capabilities and institutional expectations, which was sometimes detached from combat reality. This contradiction would become key in the next trial. The P-61's impressive 400-mile combat radius provided Pacific crews with the necessary endurance for sustained patrols. However, its maximum speed of 365 miles per hour at 20,000 feet remained a constant source of criticism from the top Air Force Command. This speed limitation became critically evident on the night of July 15th, when Lieutenant Robert Anderson of the 422nd Night Fighter Squadron attempted to intercept a deadly V-1 flying bomb over the English Channel. What happened next was a shocking confirmation of these fears. Anderson's radar operator, Technical Sergeant William Hayes, demonstrated masterful skill, achieving perfect intercept geometry and positioning their Black Widow directly behind the German missile, which was streaking towards London at a terrifying 350 miles per hour. The P-61 could maintain this speed, but only with great difficulty and at the cost of its structural integrity. As Anderson pushed his aircraft to its maximum speed in a shallow dive, the nose fairing began to visibly deform under the colossal aerodynamic pressure. The plexiglass radar dome, originally designed for typical combat speeds rather than extreme high-speed intercept scenarios, began to flex and crack as rapid airflows created unexpected and destructive pressure differentials. The consequences of this stress proved irreversible. In just a few agonizing seconds, the entire nose section of the aircraft literally exploded, completely destroying the SCR-7-20 radar system and leaving a gaping, enormous hole in the front of the fuselage. Hayes, demonstrating incredible resilience, managed to maintain intercept data long enough for Anderson to fire a burst from the cannons mounted in the lower fuselage. However, the V-1, relentless in its destructive path, continued its programmed flight towards London. The damaged Black Widow, with its radar system destroyed and its crew sobered by the realization of its fundamental limitations in high-speed intercept scenarios, struggled back to base. This incident became a powerful argument for the skeptics. This dramatic incident, of course, provided ample fodder for critics who, with renewed vigor, argued that the P-61 embodied flawed design priorities. However, paradoxically, those same limitations proved completely irrelevant during regular night fighter missions, where success depended much more on persistence and precision than on pure, raw speed. It was in these conditions that the Black Widow once again began to prove its indispensability. Throughout August and September, the Pacific-based Black Widows steadily increased their kill count, successfully countering Japanese night raiders. The 6th Night Fighter Squadron's operations log for this period officially recorded 17 confirmed kills. Time and again, the crews demonstrated the aircraft's unique ability to detect, effectively track, and destroy enemy bombers, even those operating in optimal evasion conditions, utilizing all the advantages of the night sky. Thus, despite all obstacles, the P-61 continued its vital service, proving that true value is determined not only by speed, but by the ability to accomplish its mission when it matters most. Imagine an aircraft so advanced, so effective in its deadly mission, that its very success led to its obsolescence. It sounds like a paradox, doesn't it? How can victory become the cause of oblivion for a machine built for war? And how did the tactical genius of its pilots manage to turn perceived disadvantages into undeniable strengths, only to eventually face an empty, silent sky? Perhaps you've encountered a situation where your greatest achievements in a certain field suddenly rendered further efforts meaningless, where triumph stripped you of your accustomed purpose. This was precisely the path destined for those who perfected the art of night air combat. Today, we delve into the thrilling yet tragic story of one of World War II's most unique combat aircraft, the P-61 Colt 62. This machine seemingly possessed all the qualities for undisputed dominance of the night sky. But its fate proved far more complex and unexpected than anyone could have predicted. In this narrative, we will reveal how the Komashtaskotsans not only changed, but completely redefined the concept of aerial duels in the dark, only to then face an incredible strategic stalemate. And we'll begin by exploring how tactics transformed it into a virtually invisible night predator, whose approach enemies only learned of through tracer fire. From its very first combat sorties, the tactical doctrine born from the P-61's successes focused not on attempting to compensate for its imposing size or complexity, but on the unprecedented capabilities it offered. Quote 65 crews quickly mastered approaching their targets from below and behind, skillfully using onboard radar to maintain contact while remaining completely undetectable by visual means. The aircraft's unique twin-boom configuration ensured minimal radar cross-section when viewed directly from the front. This allowed Black Widows to close to effective firing range before enemy pilots suspected anything. Stay with us and watch until the end, as this story is full of unexpected twists. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. While distinct tactical approaches developed in the Pacific Theater, European operations demanded a different strategy. Crews of the 422nd Night Fighter Squadron adapted their methods to engage German transport aircraft and reconnaissance missions. The congested airspace over Western Europe necessitated more intricate coordination with ground control interception points, as numerous friendly and enemy aircraft operated simultaneously within relatively confined zones. Black Widow pilots consistently found themselves in interception scenarios that required not only precise navigation but also lightning-fast reactions to changing circumstances. Captain Lee Kendall, recently transferred to the Pacific Theater to serve with the 548th Night Fighter Squadron, carried the torch of European experience. His aircraft, affectionately dubbed Lady in the Dark by ground crews, embodied the lessons learned from months of night combat over France and Belgium. Kendall quickly realized that for successful interceptions, patience was the #1 virtue. It was far more crucial to await the ideal attack angle than to rush into suboptimal firing positions where the chances of success were minimal. This philosophy proved critically important during operations in late September near Iwo Jima, where Japanese night bombers began employing sophisticated evasion techniques gleaned from European intelligence reports. Enemy pilots executed abrupt changes in altitude and course, specifically designed to break radar contact, forcing American interceptors to reacquire targets multiple times during a single engagement. While the P-61's 16-mile radar range provided ample margin for reacquisition, this was only possible if crews maintained strict discipline in their approach methods. Stay with us and watch until the end to discover how this amazing story concludes. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription, and of course, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. It was in such complex interception scenarios that the aircraft's heavy armament became its decisive advantage. Unlike single-engine fighters that were merely modified for night operations, the Black Widow carried enough firepower to destroy a target in a single short burst. 4 20mm Hispano cannons could penetrate bomber armor at ranges exceeding 1,000 yards, while 4 .50 caliber Browning machine guns provided a volume of fire that guaranteed target destruction even with a relatively low probability of hit. Statistical analysis of combat results conducted by October 1944 undeniably confirmed Northrop's original concept. Quote 77 crews achieved significantly higher kill ratios compared to modified day fighters operating as night interceptors. This was primarily due to the P-61's integrated radar and weapons systems, which allowed for precise and aimed attacks rather than relying on spray and pray tactics. The aircraft's size and complexity, once perceived as drawbacks, proved to be essential for successful mission execution in real operational conditions. However, these tactical triumphs could not alter the harsh strategic reality. By November, German air activity over Western Europe had drastically diminished. Fuel shortages and catastrophic pilot losses reduced Luftwaffe night operations to a minimal level. Japanese night bombing campaigns also waned, as American air superiority methodically eliminated most enemy bomber bases within reach of strategic targets. The P-61 increasingly found itself without suitable targets, leading to renewed debates about production priorities. The paradox became increasingly evident to crews who had personally proven their aircraft's outstanding combat effectiveness. They possessed arguably the most sophisticated night fighter in the world, equipped with radar systems and firepower that enemy pilots could neither detect nor effectively defend against. Yet strategic circumstances inexorably eliminated the very need for the tasks the Black Widow was designed to perform. Victory in the night war ultimately meant that night fighters simply became unnecessary. Spring 1945 brought an unexpected and quiet twilight to the era of night fighter warfare. Captain Lee Kendall, now stationed on Iwo Jima with the 548th Night Fighter Squadron, found himself conducting increasingly routine patrols over waters that once teemed with enemy aircraft. Japanese night bombing operations had dwindled to isolated nuisance missions, launched from bases hundreds of miles away, by pilots operating with minimal fuel reserves and outdated equipment. The strategic calculations that once justified the P-61's development were rapidly losing their relevance. Nevertheless, institutional inertia continued to fuel Quote 84's operations, even as their tactical significance steadily diminished. Northrop's production lines rolled out the last aircraft from a total of 706 units, each representing hundreds of thousands of dollars in manufacturing costs and thousands of hours of skilled labor. Squadron commanders received orders to maintain operational readiness, despite the clear reality that enemy air activity no longer justified such colossal expenditures of resources and personnel. The contradiction became painfully evident during April operations, when entire night fighter squadrons logged dozens of flight hours without encountering a single enemy contact. Crews patrolled empty skies. Their sophisticated radar equipment detected nothing more threatening than weather formations and occasional friendly aircraft operating outside standard coordination procedures. It was the end of an era, concluding not with a triumphant battle, but with a quiet, almost imperceptible disappearance of purpose. Imagine this. You've spent months honing a skill, perfected it, and then in an instant, it's all called into question. Your abilities, your courage, your long hours of training, all of it could become unnecessary. Sound familiar? That feeling when your invested efforts seem futile, when the future you strove for suddenly vanishes beyond the horizon. This is precisely what the elite pilots and radar operators of the formidable P-61 Black Widows, night fighters, faced as the war inexorably drew to a close. It seemed that the enormous investment in these unique aircraft was about to become a waste of funds. Critics were already rubbing their hands, predicting failure, as enemy activity in the night sky had sharply declined. But was this truly the case, or did the elusive Black Widows force the enemy to abandon their most cunning plans, changing the course of night warfare in ways few realized? And what if the last, most significant battle in this aircraft's history was not just a victory, but a tragic irony of fate that still raises questions today? Today, we will uncover the full story of the P-61, learn how it influenced enemy strategy, and what shocking climax awaited it at the very end. Stay with us and watch until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. The psychological pressure on the flight crews was truly immense. Elite aces and their keen radar operators, who had honed their interception skills to perfection over many months, suddenly faced the bitter truth. Their mastery might never be tested in actual aerial combat. General Vandenberg's words, once sounding like biting criticism, now took on an ominous prophetic tone, for the end of the war was imminent. The colossal investments in developing night fighter capabilities began to seem incredibly wasteful, especially against the backdrop of a noticeable decline in enemy activity in the night sky. But these same skeptics stubbornly refused to acknowledge the fundamental strategic impact that P-61 operations had on the course of hostilities during their peak operational success. It was thanks to American interceptors, equipped with advanced radar systems, that the Japanese High Command was forced to completely abandon systematic night bombing raids, as such missions became prohibitively costly and suicidal for them. Stay with us and watch until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. The ultimate and undeniable triumph of the Black Widow unfolded at dawn on August 14, 1945. Lieutenant Kendall and his experienced crew, piloting their P-61 Lady in the Dark, received coordinates from ground control for a single target rapidly approaching Okinawa from the northwest. According to intelligence, this aircraft might be carrying high-ranking Japanese officials en route to Allied headquarters to discuss surrender terms. However, despite these assumptions, standard interception procedures remained unchanged until precise target identification. Kendall's radar operator confidently locked onto the target at a distance of 14 miles, carefully tracking its descent through broken cloud layers, heading towards Okinawa's airfields. The flight profile indicated a twin-engine transport, presumably a Mitsubishi Ki-46 Dyna reconnaissance aircraft adapted for long-range courier tasks. Although standard doctrine prescribed visual identification before opening fire, the pitch darkness and unfavorable weather conditions made this task virtually impossible. As Lady in the Dark closed the distance to the target, Kendall noticed the enemy aircraft activating its navigation lights and steadily maintaining course for an American-controlled airfield. These signs could suggest friendly intentions, yet intelligence reports regarding deceptive Japanese tactics remained in effect. Thus, the final decision to engage or continue identification rested entirely with the interceptor crew, who, in night operations, possessed absolute tactical freedom. At a mere 800 yards, Kendall finally established visual contact with the target. It was a Japanese Navy reconnaissance aircraft flying without any escort and making no evasive maneuvers. The target pilot, apparently unaware of the P-61's presence, maintained a straight and level flight, likely guided by a radio beacon. Kendall's finger decisively moved to the firing controls as he perfectly maneuvered his aircraft into the optimal attack angle. The deadly burst lasted less than 3 seconds. 4 powerful cannons and 4 heavy machine guns concentrated their destructive fire precisely into the central fuselage and wing root sections of the enemy aircraft. The target instantly disintegrated in midair, its fuel tanks igniting in a blinding fireball that brilliantly illuminated the surrounding cloud masses. Scattered debris littered the ocean surface for several square miles, leaving no chance for survivors or recovery of the aircraft's remains. Subsequent intelligence analysis after the mission confirmed the bitter truth. The target destroyed by Kendall indeed carried Japanese naval officers who were en route to establish contact with Allied forces regarding surrender. The irony of fate proved truly cruel. The last aerial victory of the war essentially destroyed potential participants in peace negotiations. Nevertheless, Lieutenant Kendall and his crew acted impeccably, strictly adhering to established protocols, demonstrating the lethal effectiveness that ensured the success of P-61 operations throughout their combat history. Just hours after this final, tragically ironic interception, Emperor Hirohito announced Japan's unconditional surrender via radio, a message meticulously tracked by American intelligence services across the Pacific region. This historic announcement effectively brought an end to all hostilities, including the complex night fighter missions for which the Black Widow interceptor had been created. 706 unique aircraft, thousands of highly skilled specialists, and millions of dollars invested in their development were rendered obsolete overnight by a single radio broadcast. Post-war statistical data presented a complex yet compelling picture of operational success and strategic indispensability. American night fighter squadrons, equipped with P-61s, destroyed 127 enemy aircraft during approximately 10 months of active combat. In addition, they accounted for 18 downed V-1 flying bombs, and even 1 stray B-29 bomber flying on autopilot over Iwo Jima. Numerous other victories remained officially unconfirmed, as they occurred over vast ocean expanses where debris recovery was simply impossible. However, these figures symbolized something far greater than a mere tally of destroyed enemy targets. They were vivid proof of the successful implementation of a truly revolutionary tactical doctrine. The P-61 convincingly demonstrated that specialized night fighters could absolutely dominate in pitch darkness, relying on technological superiority and the highest level of crew training. Enemy pilots, who previously felt unpunished in the night sky, now found themselves in the deadly sights of invisible predators equipped with radar eyes and overwhelming firepower. The legacy of this unique aircraft extended far beyond immediate combat results, encompassing much broader strategic implications. The Japanese command's complete abandonment of systematic night bombing allowed thousands of American servicemen to be freed from burdensome air defense tasks, thereby redirecting them to participate in offensive operations. Moreover, Britain's adoption of American night fighter doctrine significantly influenced post-war interceptor development programs, which would later play a crucial role in Cold War confrontations. Perhaps the most important outcome was that the P-61 convincingly proved specialized aircraft designed for specific mission tasks can achieve outstanding tactical successes despite apparent shortcomings in conventional performance metrics. In conditions of pitch darkness and against unsuspecting targets, speed and maneuverability proved less critical factors than superior radar capabilities and overwhelming firepower. In a world where speed and simplicity are often considered measures of success, there's a story of a machine that defied these notions. A story of an aircraft that many called unnecessary, overly complex, even slow. But what if these seemingly flaws were actually its greatest strengths? What if what seemed excessive was, in fact, absolutely essential for victory in the darkest conditions? Today, we will delve into the amazing saga of the P-61-113, a night fighter whose true value was understood only by those who fought in the shadows and who could see what remained invisible to others. This aircraft, known as the Koch-115, didn't just perform missions. It rewrote the rules of night warfare, leaving critics bewildered. How did it come to be that an aircraft whose utility was questioned even after the war ended became a crucial element of air doctrine? What unique engineering solutions and tactical innovations allowed it to become the silent predator of the night sky? And how did its creators and crews manage to defend its legendary reputation in the face of the most influential skeptics? Like many pioneering ideas that encounter resistance, the Black Widow journeyed from misunderstanding to recognition. Its story is not just a chronicle of aerial battles. It's a lesson in how courage of thought and belief in unconventional solutions can change the course of events. Perhaps you too have faced situations where your ideas or projects seem too audacious or complex to those around you. But it was precisely in them that the key to a true breakthrough lay. We know what it's like to be in the shoes of those whose innovative approaches are first rejected, then become the benchmark. And today, we will tell you how they succeeded. Stay with us and watch until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Indeed, the lessons learned from countless Black Widow operations profoundly and lastingly influenced the design of jet interceptors for decades to come. When pilot Kendall landed his combat aircraft, nicknamed Lady in the Dark, for the final time, he was filled with an unwavering conviction that his seemingly unnecessary aircraft had fully and brilliantly fulfilled its purpose. Those who criticized and questioned the true value of the P-61 simply failed to grasp the very essence of night warfare. In this particular domain, victory always belonged to those who possessed the ability to see the enemy while remaining unseen, and to strike suddenly without the slightest warning. At times, what appears at first glance to be redundant or even superfluous proves to be vital and absolutely essential, especially when combat unfolds in the pitch-black darkness of night. But how was this undeniable value proven and defended after the battles concluded? We will discuss this further. Stay with us and watch until the end. We would be especially grateful for a like and a subscription, and of course, let us know where you're watching from in the comments. The onset of the armistice, while halting the bloody hostilities, could not instantly resolve all the complex questions regarding the P-61's true and ultimate value to American air power doctrine. In September 1945, Lieutenant Herman Ernst was slated to appear before a War Department evaluation committee. This committee, tasked with assessing wartime procurement decisions, was to hear his defense of his aircraft's reputation. Notably, the committee members, predominantly senior officers, had never before flown night fighters. They approached the, quote, 135 hours program with a highly skeptical analysis, focusing their attention on the dry figures of economic efficiency and strategic necessity. However, as it turned out, much deeper truths lay hidden behind the numbers. Lieutenant Ernst's testimony vividly illuminated operational realities that mere statistical summaries simply could not fully capture. The figure of 127 confirmed kills represented only the tip of the iceberg. These were only the documented victories where wreckage could be found or witness confirmation obtained. However, dozens, if not hundreds, of additional intercepts occurred over the vast expanse of the ocean, where enemy aircraft simply vanished from radar screens after a deadly encounter with P-61 crews. The true, complete ratio of destroyed targets will likely forever remain unknown, but combat veterans understood perfectly well. Many successful intercepts left no visible or detectable evidence. Furthermore, the psychological impact on enemy operations proved utterly impossible to quantify using conventional metrics. Japanese night bombing campaigns, in essence, ceased not only due to a simple lack of fuel or pilot losses. The main reason was that American interceptors, equipped with advanced radar, made such missions extraordinarily dangerous and unfeasible. Enemy commanders, who had once fearlessly conducted regular raids on Allied targets, discovered with horror that they could no longer guarantee the survival of their aircraft even beyond the initial interception zone. The questions posed by the evaluation committee only confirmed their fundamental misunderstanding of night fighter doctrine and specific operational requirements. Committee members repeatedly emphasized the P-61's relatively lower speed compared to day fighters, completely ignoring the fact that maximum speed was entirely irrelevant in night interception scenarios. They criticized the aircraft's complex design and high maintenance requirements, yet utterly failed to acknowledge that successful night operations demanded precisely complex radar systems and specialized crew training, which simpler aircraft naturally could not provide. But how then did the designers manage to defend their technical solutions? We will find out next, when Jack Northrop himself appeared before the committee. Jack Northrop himself, the distinguished designer, personally appeared before the committee to firmly and convincingly defend his revolutionary design philosophy and all his technical decisions. The aircraft manufacturer was at that moment under the potential threat of a congressional investigation regarding colossal development costs and complex production schedules, making his testimony absolutely crucial for both corporate reputation and future military contracts. Northrop, with unwavering confidence, emphasized that the P-61 had met every specification requirement established by the U.S. Army Air Forces down to the smallest detail during the very first procurement negotiations. The twin-boom configuration, so unusual and seemingly complex, provided optimal radar station placement without any interference from the propellers. This allowed for unprecedented detection range that single-engine fighters could never have provided. The powerful armament package ensured sufficient firepower to instantly destroy targets with minimal exposure time, thereby significantly reducing the aircraft's vulnerability during daring attack runs. And, most importantly, the aircraft's impressive fuel capacity and exceptional structural strength supported prolonged patrol missions over vast Pacific distances. A task that would have been absolutely impossible for lighter interceptors. Northrop's technical presentation included a detailed analysis of alternative approaches that the U.S. Army Air Forces had considered in the earliest stages of development. For example, British Squawk-X 128 night fighters, despite their outstanding speed and proven European combat experience, completely lacked the necessary range for large-scale Pacific operations. Modified P-38, now when .129 equipped with radar pods, suffered from serious asymmetric loading problems which created extremely dangerous handling characteristics. Single-engine fighters with external radar installations experienced significant performance degradation, which completely nullified their speed advantages. The data presented by the manufacturer undeniably demonstrated that none of the existing aircraft at that time could perform the night fighter mission as effectively and reliably as the specially built P-61. Critics who actively advocated for alternative procurement solutions simply failed to grasp the unique and specific requirements of night intercept operations, where success directly depended on sensor capabilities and firepower, not on conventional daylight performance metrics. But who then ensured the complex operation of these radar systems and tactical coordination? We will discuss this further when Captain Copsall talks about crew training. Edward Copsall, by then promoted to captain, presented the committee with detailed and comprehensive testimony regarding the training of radar operators and the tactical procedures that had proven exceptionally effective in real combat conditions. The SCR-720 radar system, a truly revolutionary technology of its time, required many months of specialized and intensive training before operators could achieve the necessary level of competence. The very complexity that critics hastily deemed excessive was, in fact, a direct reflection of the system's sophisticated capabilities, allowing for incredibly precise intercepts in conditions where visual target identification remained absolutely impossible. Copsall's deep operational analysis revealed the intricate coordination that was vitally necessary between the pilot, radar operator, and ground intercept control stations during every successful mission. The P-61's three-man crew configuration provided not only redundancy, but also a unique specialization that single-pilot aircraft, by their nature, could never provide. Night fighter operations required simultaneous management of radar tracking, complex navigation, constant communication, and all weapon systems. These were tasks that significantly exceeded the capabilities of even the most experienced individual pilots, regardless of their skill level. Thus, the Black Widow proved that true power lies not only in speed, but also in thoughtful teamwork and advanced technologies which, seemingly complicating it, in reality made it indispensable. Imagine pitch darkness, the enemy invisible, and your life and the fate of an entire nation on the line. Have you ever felt like you're fighting ghosts, relying only on subtle signals and your own intuition? Many of us have faced challenges that seem insurmountable when familiar tools are powerless. But what if I told you that it was precisely in such conditions that the most important victories were born, thanks to machines initially considered superfluous? How did it happen that an aircraft almost sent to the scrap heap became the progenitor of an entire era in military aviation? And what lessons did it teach the world about the power of technology and human resilience? In this video, we will reveal how one aircraft, nicknamed the ST-44, changed the rules of war and why its lessons are still relevant today. We will delve into the unique history of the P-61 Night Fighter, which, despite bureaucratic criticism, proved its indispensability during the darkest hours of conflict. Stay with us and watch until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, let us know where you're watching from in the comments. Captain Copsel's testimony from one of the Black Widow pioneers vividly illustrated how crew cohesion determined the line between triumph and defeat. Numerous intercept scenarios demanded instantaneous decisions based on complex radar information, while pilots had to maintain flawless control of the aircraft in absolute darkness. Thanks to the P-61's outstanding flight characteristics and advanced instrument panel, crews could perform maneuvers that seemed inconceivable for other aircraft of that era. Perhaps the most compelling argument in favor of the P-61 was Copsel's analysis of enemy countermeasures and their complete ineffectiveness against correctly applied Black Widow tactics. Japanese pilots desperately tried to evade, using sharp altitude changes, course maneuvers, and electronic jamming to break radar contact. However, none of these methods brought consistent success against P-61 crews, who thoroughly understood the capabilities and limitations of their unique equipment. Stay with us and watch until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, let us know where you're watching from in the comments. The Evaluation Committee's final report, while acknowledging the P-61's technological complexity and combat power, nevertheless questioned the advisability of such capital investments in specialized equipment. The committee concluded that rapid changes in the strategic situation limited the aircraft's operational utility, but prudently refrained from directly criticizing procurement decisions made under different wartime conditions. However, this dry bureaucratic assessment overlooked the far deeper implications of Conscientiously 14's operations for all future air defense planning. The P-61 did not merely perform combat missions. It laid the doctrinal foundations and tactical procedures that subsequently influenced the development of jet interceptors throughout the nascent Cold War. The integration of airborne radar with ground control systems, stringent crew specialization requirements, and all-weather intercept capabilities became standard features of post-war fighter design. Moreover, this aircraft provided convincing proof that American industry was capable of creating complex weapon systems able to outperform the best enemy equipment. The SCR-720 radar represented a genuine technological superiority, providing Allied forces with decisive advantages in specialized missions. This demonstration of advanced electronics integration would prove key to maintaining air superiority in future conflicts. Nevertheless, the human cost of night fighter operations remained largely invisible to evaluation committees, focused on statistical analysis and procurement efficiency. Crews who flew hundreds of hours in pitch darkness, tracking unseen enemies over hostile territory, bore psychological burdens that official reports never acknowledged. The constant stress of radar intercepts, weapon deployment decisions, and navigation challenges in zero visibility took its toll, which would affect veterans for decades. Lieutenant Ernst's post-war correspondence with other Black Widow veterans revealed the long-term impact of their shared experiences. Individuals who entrusted their lives to radar screens and instrument panels developed perceptions of technology and human capabilities that differed fundamentally from those of conventional fighter pilots. They understood that victory in modern warfare increasingly depended on superior sensors and information processing rather than traditional pilot skills. The unnecessary aircraft indeed changed the nature of aerial combat, establishing patterns for electronic warfare and precision intercept operations that defined military aviation throughout the jet era. Its critics were right about speed limitations and complexity drawbacks, but wrong about strategic value and operational necessity. Sometimes the most important victories occur in the darkness, where only specialized tools can bring success. Decades after the war's end, the P-61's design philosophy was confirmed in a way its initial critics could never have foreseen. By 1950, the emergence of Soviet long-range bombers capable of delivering nuclear weapons instantly altered the requirements for U.S. air defense. The Continental Air Defense Command desperately sought intercept capabilities that could operate in all weather, day or night, against targets that could approach at any altitude or speed. The lessons learned from Black Widow operations became the foundational doctrine for the new generation of jet interceptors entering service in the 1950s. The Northrop F-89 Scorpion, Lockheed F-94 Starfire, and other Cold War night fighters incorporated design principles first applied in the P-61 program. Twin-engine configurations provided a margin of safety during long patrols over water, while complex radar systems delivered all-weather intercept capabilities that single-engine day fighters could never match. Hermann Ernst, now a retired Air Force colonel, participated in the testing of these new interceptors, applying his combat experience to tactical doctrine and crew training requirements. His insights proved invaluable during the transition from propeller to jet night fighters, especially regarding the integration of ground control, intercept systems with airborne radar equipment. Ernst's analysis emphasized that technological development alone could not guarantee operational success. The P-61's effectiveness depended on crew training and tactical discipline as much as on advanced equipment. Pilots and radar operators required hundreds of flight hours to develop proficiency in night intercept procedures, and these investments in training could not be cut through simplified aircraft systems or automated equipment. Have you ever thought that an ordinary aircraft could change the course of history? That a machine created for one purpose could lay the foundation for an entire generation of technology? If you've ever felt that your efforts are underestimated or that your unique experience goes unnoticed, then this story is for you. We've all been in situations where our dark horse turned out to be far more significant than it seemed at first glance. Today, we'll dive into the incredible story of the Northrop P-61 Black Widow, an aircraft that seemed to be just a World War II night fighter, but in reality became a true pioneer. How did this giant manage to influence pilot training, radar development, and even the creation of future fighters that dominated the skies for decades? And why was its contribution so fundamental that it still resonates in modern aviation? Get ready to discover how one machine revolutionized aerial combat and aircraft design. Stay with us and watch until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Throughout the 1950s, the Colonel's recommendations significantly influenced Air Defense Command training programs. This led to the establishment of specialized schools for night fighter crews and the standardization of intercept procedures, which were developed based on extensive World War II combat experience. These doctrinal foundations became crucial as Soviet bomber formations actively began testing American air defense measures amidst the escalating tensions of the Cold War. Edward Copsall, who by then was working as a technical consultant for Westinghouse, a radar manufacturer, actively applied his operational knowledge to develop advanced intercept systems designed for the new generation of fighters. The SCR-720 radar, with which the P-61 was equipped, represented rather primitive technology compared to post-war developments. However, the tactical procedures that Copsall refined remained fundamentally unchanged, demonstrating their remarkable relevance. Copsall's work vividly highlighted the critical importance of human-machine interface design within the context of complex weapon systems. Indeed, even the most advanced radar equipment became meaningless if operators were unable to quickly and accurately interpret the received information under the immense stress of real combat scenarios. His deep experience related to the P-61's crew coordination requirements significantly influenced the development of two-seat fighters, which subsequently became the standard for interceptors throughout the jet era. This former radar operator's technical presentations to military audiences constantly emphasized the psychological factors that critically determine success or failure during night intercept missions. Crews operating in complete darkness, relying entirely on electronic sensors and instrument displays, faced unique types of stress, requiring specialized training and a particular approach to equipment design. These profound insights proved truly invaluable as air defense planners actively grappled with the challenges associated with intercept requirements in the nuclear age. Jack Northrop's aircraft company, leveraging its extensive experience with the Black Widow, actively participated in the fierce competition for major Cold War defense contracts. This involved developing flying wing bombers and creating advanced interceptor designs. The engineering expertise gained from the P-61's development provided the company with decisive advantages in key areas such as radar integration, electronic systems layout, and crew station design, capabilities that proved inaccessible to competitors. Northrop's post-war success with the F-89 Scorpion night fighter clearly demonstrated the enduring relevance of the design principles established by the Black Widow program. The twin-boom configuration, potent armament package, and sophisticated radar systems, which critics once deemed superfluous, became standard features of American interceptors throughout the 1950s and 60s. The manufacturer's corporate archives meticulously preserved detailed technical documentation from the P-61 program, including test data, operational reports, and invaluable crew feedback. These materials proved invaluable for subsequent aircraft development. Such institutional knowledge enabled Northrop to avoid repeating design flaws while integrating lessons learned from real-world combat operations, marking a significant advancement in aeronautical thought. Lee Kendall, the pilot credited with the war's final aerial victory, returned to civilian life after the war. However, he maintained close ties with air defense development programs. His extensive experience conducting long-duration patrol missions over the vast Pacific significantly influenced the requirements for next-generation interceptors designed to defend North American airspace against potential Soviet bomber incursions. Kendall's operational insights vividly underscored the enduring importance of aircraft endurance and crew comfort for successful air defense missions. The P-61's fuel capacity and spacious crew accommodations enabled patrol missions lasting 6 hours or even longer. These unique capabilities proved absolutely essential for maintaining effective intercept coverage over vast geographic areas, a critical factor during the Cold War. The former captain's technical consulting work involved meticulous evaluation of proposed interceptor designs and comprehensive assessment of their suitability for air defense missions. His invaluable combat experience provided a unique perspective that engineering analysis alone could not offer. This was particularly crucial regarding the practical limitations of crew performance during prolonged, high-stress operations, where the human element played a key role. By 1960, strategic analysts universally began to recognize the P-61's historical significance, extending far beyond its direct wartime contributions. The aircraft set important precedents for specialized weapon systems designed to meet specific tactical requirements, rather than simply optimizing conventional performance parameters. This design philosophy would prove crucial for developing effective responses to evolving threats throughout the Cold War. The Black Widow's integration of advanced sensors, heavy armament, and crew specialization created operational capabilities that surpassed the sum of its individual components, demonstrating a synergistic effect. This systemic approach to aircraft design became standard practice for military aviation throughout the jet era, influencing everything from air superiority fighters to strategic reconnaissance aircraft. Perhaps most significantly, the P-61 convincingly demonstrated that technological superiority could provide decisive advantages in specialized mission domains where conventional wisdom might suggest entirely alternative approaches. Critics of the aircraft were certainly correct regarding its limitations in daytime combat scenarios, but they were mistaken about the strategic importance of night interception capabilities. Veterans who flew combat missions in Black Widows carried unique insights into the complex interplay between technology and tactical success. Insights gained at the cost of their own experience. Their experience convincingly proved that complex equipment demands equally sophisticated training and meticulously developed operational procedures to achieve maximum effectiveness. These lessons would prove invaluable as military aviation entered the missile era, where human judgment remained a crucial factor despite the ever-increasing automation of systems. Ever felt underestimated? Like your ideas are labeled "172 and their potential ignored? We know that feeling well. But what if what seemed superfluous became a true breakthrough? Today, we're uncovering the astonishing story of the P-61 fighter, which was initially branded unnecessary. How did it, against all odds, change the rules of aerial combat? And why does its brief but decisive career still shape the principles of modern air defense? Stay with us and watch until the end to discover all the details. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, don't forget to tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Many experts were mistaken in deeming the P-61 a miscalculation. But this aircraft didn't just survive. It laid doctrinal foundations, technological precedents, and operational procedures that shaped air defense operations for generations to come. Who would have thought that this unnecessary project would become the key to the future? Stay with us and watch until the end to discover all the details. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, don't forget to tell us in the comments where you're watching from. The P-61 convincingly proved the night belongs to those with superior sensors and overwhelming firepower. This fundamental principle, which we will now explore in more detail, became the bedrock for all subsequent developments in aerial combat.